Aaron McKenzie, we're live, buddy.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Hey, I've watched some of your stuff on Instagram. It's inspiring. It's amazing. I want to know your backstory. How'd you get into the health space? How did you develop what seems to be a very bespoke and amazing functional movement style practice, and anything else that's going to give our listeners a little bit of background?
Oh, cool. Well, it started out, I used to skateboard when I was younger, and I loved movement. I loved, the expression and just the challenge of, seeing something in your mind's eye and then recreating it with your body.
Yeah.
It was very cool. And then I got into martial arts and into strength training and just general movement. And that was, over 20 years ago, and haven't looked back since. I've really just enjoyed the whole journey. In terms of health, I was challenged as a teenager with different skin conditions and just tried all different things to try and overcome it. It wasn't until I changed my nutrition. So I went and saw a naturopath, and she really opened my eyes to what I was putting in my body, and it helped me make that connection. And I was very fortunate. I was only 16 when this happened.
And when you say skin, you don't just mean the normal pimply teenager.
No, it was quite extreme. I was very self-conscious of it.
Yeah.
And, I tried all different things topically and whatever, and all different pharmaceutical interventions to try and relieve it. And, you work a little bit, but it wasn't really resolved. And it wasn't until I, got into nutrition and really taking responsibility for what I put in my body that it really shifted. And it was quite profound. It was, I felt like I came back to life, and everyone that saw me saw the changes. And it's like I just allowed myself to develop more than I would have. And I felt, just see all the opportunities in life because your brain's working properly. And you see life as an opportunity, not as a series of problems.
Yeah.
And you can just, you get so much more out of it with that perspective.
Yeah.
So that kind of started me on my journey to, wanting to share health.
That's a pretty early age.
Yeah.
So what did you do from there? Finish school?
No, actually, I left school. I went back to school.
So you left school at 16?
At 13 I left school.
Damn.
Very young.
Wow, there's a story in that.
Yeah, no, I just, I had
skateboard, I left school at 13,
Lots of older friends, and just loved all that kind of, just choosing my own life. I was very, very much into that. But then, I started working, and then I went back and did my school certificate, went back and did my high school certificate, which was different because I ended up almost catching up with everyone that I left behind and saved myself 3 years.
Yeah, because you wanted to do it.
Yeah, but, I got in there and just put my head down, and I really wanted to do it. I'd worked for a bit full-time in a baker's delight, and realized that this is not what I want to do with my life, and there's got to be a better way. So, and I was on a deep search for, role models, and just, found that, through the media and stuff like that, just looking for people that were healthy and whatever, and kind of idolized myself around martial arts, action heroes and stuff like that. So that kind of spurred me on with that type of training. And then, that led me into becoming a personal trainer. And then once I did that, it's like, this is what I want to do. I love helping people and sharing with people what I feel is relevant and what's missing, and helping them look at their own lives and figure out what it is that they need to do in order to pull it back together into something that's, worthwhile and meaningful, and, that feels good every day.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
Yeah, that was 19.
19 years. How old are you now?
41.
41. You're not good for 41. Hey, we are all getting on. After the initial qualification, have you just been self-taught, or did you continue to do things more formally?
Well, I was very fortunate. In 2000, I met Paul Chek, which you may have heard of. But he's a pretty amazing man, very much into the holistic approach of living, and he's a bit out there in some respects, but very much looking for answers, looking for the truth, and looking to optimize his experience of life, and always looking for more. And he was saying stuff now that, there's stuff back then that people are just talking about now and very much into it. So he steered me into the Weston A. Price Foundation and reading that book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration back then, which was really a huge eye-opener. So that set me on a path of traditional eating and also the whole movement side, because he integrates, chiropractics, osteopathy, physiotherapy into strength and conditioning, and very well-versed and very well-read, and integrates everything that he found was useful into his approach.
Yeah.
So it was quite a good kind of foundation studying under him. So I spent 5 years kind of studying very hard under what he was recommending, and exploring that, and then integrating that into my business as a personal trainer and just into my own life. And I found that very, very helpful for people. It was a little bit different from what other people are doing, but at that time, but now it's normal. Like all these things are normal now, which is so good and cool. And that's why I think this whole social media thing just has so much opportunity to do good.
Yeah.
Just because we're sharing all the different resources from all over the world instantly, it's just, and if you've got something that's working, show it. There's no more gurus anymore. Like if there are, let's see it.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. And there's no more kind of just reading about it. If something's working, we can see it now, and that's so powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that's why things are happening a lot faster. People are adopting things. There's a lot of misinformation still, but there's a greater opportunity for change, and there's a faster turnaround in which something that people are kind of sharing that may not be true to be found out very quickly, because if it is working, okay, let's see the data. Let's see you living it.
Yeah.
And that's what I try and do. I try and just, share something and live it as much as possible to try and help other people realize that this is possible.
Yeah, I suppose the only thing I would say to that is the integrity of some people insofar as what they do and the outcomes that they get. That I completely agree with you that the speed of information is a blessing, but there's also an enormous amount of confusion that it creates.
And the filter is what people need.
They do need a filter.
And we need people to be honest. We need people to be upfront and real, and we need people to challenge anyone at stating stuff.
Yeah.
If you're going to say this is what works, let's see your whole life. Let's see behind what you're selling.
Yeah.
Because there's always more to it.
Of course.
And that's where I think there is that other side of this that's so powerful. Yeah. Because the people have the power to comment straight away and ask or direct message these people. And, if you're going on about something being amazing, then, let's get real. Let's hit them up for it. So I've just gone and done a full comprehensive full blood panel of everything that I could imagine to just share
to make
with
your
people.
Bloods available for the public,
for everyone. And good, bad, and ugly. I want to share it. I don't want to just cherry pick stuff just to make me look like I'm intelligent or I'm better than other people or I've got it figured out. We're all in this together. Yeah. And the sooner we take on that attitude, I think the sooner we'll find something that's really workable.
I love it.
For people, yeah.
Because, what I'm saying there before, if you look at the traditional research behind particularly nutrition and epidemiological studies, etc., like they are probably the most misleading research on the planet. And they do literally cherry pick whatever they want.
And they've programmed the planet.
They've programmed the planet, So if you eat red meat and you get cancer, then cancer's caused by red meat. Doesn't matter that you smoke or don't exercise or you're stressed or you work in a coal mine or whatever.
Let's focus on that one variable.
There it is. We've got the cure. We've got the cause. We can now cure it. Stop eating red meat and you're not going to have cancer. Yeah. So
it's very sad. If you look at now, we've gone through the whole process, and it's a very religious approach to blame meat for all the carnal desires, the desire to have to have sex and to be violent and all these things. And that was where it started. You know, like you have to abstain from it because of those reasons.
Yeah, the 7-day Adventists in particular.
Totally, man. And but that's still going. But it's just it's morphed into, you know, went to heart disease and, you know, obviously the saturated fat argument, and then it's gone to cancer. Then it's gone to, you know, us not performing well, and then it's just being blamed for everything. And now it's being blamed
change,
the environment,
animal cruelty,
and
you
now
name it.
you know, like we've got this whole thing of sports performance with this
the game changes.
Man, it's just scary. Like it's just like they just keep shifting gears to try and find a way to
sell product.
Exactly, and that's what people don't realize. Like they don't realize that, you know, most of the beliefs that vegans have, I'm like 100% on board with in terms of the environment, in terms of animal cruelty, in terms of human health. I'm there trying to find an answer. It's just I'm seeing it from a different perspective. And I'm open to all perspectives. I mean, I'm chatting to vegans every day because, and I've been around for a while, so I have a lot of friends that are, you know, vegetarian vegans. And then also just people, I'm trying to put what I'm doing out there in a way that is open and that people can ask me questions. And I want to be challenged.
Yeah, me
and
too.
I don't want to have, you know, confrontations or arguments, but I want to be challenged. I want to learn. I want to grow. And if I'm saying stuff that isn't true, help me find the truth. You know, and I think we need to think in that way and behave in that way if we're going to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
But, you know, the game changers is just scary. What's so scary about it is that people are buying it. And
they bought it with What the Health a couple of years ago, and that fundamentally changed people's approach, like so naively, with no disrespect to anyone. Because I know it's so well-intentioned, but it's dangerous. Like it is literally dangerous to make decisions.
And all we can say of this situation is that it comes back to education.
Yeah.
Because people aren't scientifically minded and they don't know how to filter out, you know, the crap. They don't know, they don't understand, you know, to pick apart something in a way that, you know, is going to actually help them see life clearer.
Yeah.
They're looking at it just through the hype and through these kind of broad statements and not looking behind it. But they're not educated to think in that way, and we're not. And that's the problem we have.
Yeah.
And I think we need more people to kind of be able to look at it and say, oh, well, maybe these athletes were eating a particular way before. Maybe they've got genetic superiority. Maybe they have a training history that's just phenomenal. And then maybe they're using performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
Those 4 things dramatically change the meaning of that movie.
Back to cherry picking.
And it is it's very sad. And that's just a simple filter. But then when you start to look at the data that they're quoting in something like that, where they've just kind of lumped it all together and they said, well, whether they're vegan, vegetarian, or whatever, they're all plant-based. Well, they're all very different.
Very different.
And, you know, an extreme vegan approach, you know, I'm all for everyone doing whatever it is that they want to do with their life, but don't hide data or deny data just to make your argument sound better or ignore stuff, you know, and that's what I have a problem with. And I think we've all got to stay open. And my side too, like there's a lot of people in the carnivore camp that are just too aggressive, in my opinion. And it's like reverse veganism, where you've got these people just, you know, like denying plants have any value. And I think that's silly too. I think we just need to look at our earth and all its resources, something that is here for us, but we've got to learn, well, how are we going to manage this thing so everyone benefits?
Yeah.
And I was fortunate with the Western Aid Price approach. It's very much about traditional diets and traditional cultures in an environment where they had to make use of the resources available to them.
Get it.
And what's very cool about that is that depending on where they were on the planet, they had very varied diets, but there was key things that they valued. You know, sacred nutrients that were for reproduction, for good health, and to allow people to enjoy more of the experience and to bring them back from disease. And they all had commonalities, but none of them were strictly vegan.
Strictly anything.
Anything.
Seasonal, rotational,
totally
varied.
And they made use of the resources that they had available to them and got the most out of it. And if you look at the culinary arts, you know, it's making plants more digestible. And a lot of those traditional practices of soaking, sprouting, fermenting, and preparing food to make it bioavailable and digestible have been lost by, obviously the rush of consumerism and the desire to kind of get people to buy what we can grow effectively with fossil fuels and with conventional agriculture, and do that on a mass scale. And it's just the same as a pyramid. It's in the sense that we're just, we're manipulating the masses with food control to get a particular outcome. And it's not some evil person going, I'm going to destroy humanity and malnourish them all and make sure they're all disease-ridden so I can keep it all for myself. It's just profit.
It is
and
profit,
which is an agenda. It's just to make money.
It's a massive agenda.
Yeah,
but it's interesting. Like a couple of things back to the game changers, and I know Chris Kresser, that I'm sure you have heard of, who without doubt is one of the most respected functional medicine doctors on the planet, and certainly in the US. And he did a really great debunking of What the Health on the Joe Rogan podcast a couple of years ago. He's going on, I think it's the 18th, so it'll be out before we publish this one next Monday. And I think for everyone, because I'm like you, I really don't care as long as people are making decisions based on fact, and that the outcome they're wanting, whether the health of themselves or the health of the planet or caring about animals, is actually what they get. And that's my biggest beef that I have with so many of these zealots, and they truly are. Like Pat Brown, who's the founder and CEO of Impossible Foods, or Impossible Burger, I think it's Impossible Foods. I started listening to a podcast with him on Rich Roll, who's, a very famous vegan, ultra marathoner, Ironman, blah, 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 whatever he wants to say. And it is just fundamentally flawed what he said in the first 10 minutes. And I try not to get angry because there's
no point. Doesn't help anyone.
There's no point. It doesn't help anyone. He's clearly an intelligent guy. He's a medical doctor. He's a researcher. But how he can sit there and say by 2035 we're going to replace all animal agriculture with plants and that's what's good for the planet is just madness. That's kind of Hitler kind of madness.
Totally, man. And that's the scary part of it, is the kind of, and the perspectives that are almost anti-human. Well, they are, some of them are that extreme in the sense that, humans are causing all the problems. So it's almost like we've got to get rid of them. And that's so far from what this, what health is about. We've got to learn, we've got to figure out how are we going to nourish everybody and regenerate the planet at the same time.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that we can keep feeding people in the way that we're doing for quite a while longer because we've got, fossil fuel there to do it. But, if we're deteriorating as we're going along and our health is suffering and the planet's health is suffering, because even, all this talk of sustainability, it's, who wants to sustain what we're doing now? Yeah. It's sad. It's destructive. We've got to shift to that regenerative approach to make everything that we're doing actually rebuild our ecosystem, not just sustain what we've got now. We've got to go to the other side, and we've got to start working in real-time sunlight. We can't depend on fossil fuels to feed the planet. And basically, we've built the planet's population with fossil fuels because people aren't, when you look at all the equations and you look at all the, the way in which they're measuring these stats for, the vegan approach or the Impossible Burger or whatever, they leave so much out of the equation because you've got to look from the sun shining on the earth to, the plant growing and then all the steps that that's going through before it's consumed by a human. Yeah. Not just the last stage of it. Yeah. Because it's all the inputs, all the machinery at every stage. The transportation, the marketing, we've got to equate all of it to get real figures. And it's sad because people are looking at this data that's been manipulated, or it's cherry picking parts of that whole cycle, and they're not looking at the full life cycle of what they're consuming. Yeah. Not looking at the embodied energy in the machinery that's used to manufacture, to transport, to produce this. And they're getting these figures and they think, okay, well, that's it. That's the answer. That means I have to change to a plant-based diet. But it's lying to people. When you're ignoring the truth, you're lying.
Yeah, 100% they're lying. Like we had the guys from Impossible come in here to see us because they wanted us to support, distribute, and we've spoken to them all, Beyond, Impossible, Hungry Planet, and looked from a commercial perspective very seriously at it.
Oh yeah, it's good money. Look at the stock values,
it's good money, stock value. They're killing it.
But they're killing all of us.
They are literally,
and people don't realize it.
And I said to them, because they were super good guys, well-intentioned,
totally.
but motivated fools, like with no disrespect, but motivated fools. That I said, what's the main ingredient of your product? And they said, soy.
Yeah.
And I said, so soy's the most monocultured, mass-marketed product that I think it's like 95% of it is controlled and owned by Monsanto. Without doubt, the most diabolical and immoral company on the planet that's now owned by Bayer. That's probably the second. How can you sit here and tell me that
this is good for the planet?
This is good for the planet.
For humanity.
And forget about, we'll get to the nutritional quality in a minute once you mass produce these 22 ingredients.
Environment alone.
It's just crazy. And I said, and what do you think dies when you actually plant crops, soy in particular? What do you think dies? We've got bushfires in Australia. 300 koalas died on the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I don't hear people talking about that shit.
Yeah.
Because they only want to talk about things that feel good to them or a good dinner party conversation. And I had it. I said to you before I came online, I was away camping with a group of friends on the weekend, and one of the guys, intelligent dude, and, he said, animals consume, we grow all of these crops so that we can feed animals, and they use more water and they emit more greenhouse gases than anything else on the planet. Yeah. And I don't bite my tongue, but very calmly I say to them, you can't fundamentally say that last year in Australia, 70% of all crops that we grew because of the drought, the floods, the unseasonal frosts, and the fires that we had were unfit for human consumption. Yeah. So we either throw them into landfill and the farmers go broke, and farmers only grow crops to sell to humans because humans pay way more for them, or we turn that rubbish into feed for animals, that ruminant animals that are uniquely designed to turn that indigestible produce into the most nutritionally dense food on the planet. So I don't understand how you can sit there and look me in the eyes and say that we're growing crops for animals and therefore they're the root cause of the problem.
Yeah, it's sad. It's a very narrow perspective on the situation that we have. And you've got to really kind of unpack it all to understand. And you can't expect people to see it holistically or to see the full cycle of life, because we've grown up in a world, for most of us, disconnected from nature, disconnected from our environment. If it's cold, put the heat on. If it's hot, put the aircon on and cool down. Yeah. And that's basically most people's lives in every respect. If you're hungry, just go to the fridge, or you can take a quick walk and you'll get something to eat. If you're thirsty, water's brought to your door. It's in the taps. It's there. You've got nothing that challenges you to get to know what a natural environment is. Yeah. And that disconnection is what we're dealing with. And that's why people can be fooled, because they're not seeing life as a cycle, and they don't appreciate that all life requires death. There is no life without death. It's all, life is eating life constantly, and it never stops. And the thing, as human beings, we have the responsibility and the opportunity to manage that more effectively, and to look at, how can we be custodians of the planet in a way that we manage this so that everyone gets their fair share. And the whole kind of sentient being thing for animals is, I agree with that. I agree that all animals should have an amazing life. But we've still got to look at the fact that we've been domesticating livestock for 10,000 years. So there is no rewilding. So that, I hear people talk about that all the time, thinking, we've got to just return them to, they depend on us, just like dogs do. Cats are a bit different. We've got problems with feral cats because they can still survive in the wild, and they're just amazing hunters. But the dogs of the planet, the 1 billion of those, what are they going to eat? And if we turn them into vegans, what's that going to do to them? They're all suffering the same diseases as us. Yeah. But the domesticated livestock, the animals that we're eating, we can't just turn them loose. They need to be managed.
Yeah.
And anyone that's into regenerative agriculture understands that it's that pack predator environment that allows for the healing of the environment. So they need that predatory pressure to stay in tight bunches, to be able to do the work that they do, to trample and to consume, and then to leave yesterday's toilet behind, to move on to that fresh salad bar, as Joel Salatin calls it.
Yeah.
But they need that pressure. But when you just let them just kind of in an open field just do what they want, and they've been domesticated, they don't understand what they've been disconnected from that natural environment like we have.
Yeah.
So they don't do the work effectively. So we've overgrazed our country, yes, and we've overcropped our country. We've overcropped and overgrazed the planet and created deserts because of that.
Or we've overpopulated the planet.
Well, I don't know. I think
you don't think so?
I think we've overpopulated it in a way that we can't depend on in the future. But I think that we could sustain it if we manage it correctly. I'm not doom and gloom about that. I think that it's just how we manage the livestock. There's more than enough sun. There's more than enough land for all of us. If we use livestock effectively to regenerate the soil and to pull that carbon out of the atmosphere and get it back where we want it, and to allow for that microorganism environment in the soil to, nourish the grasses that the ruminants are eating, and then that goes into their flesh, into their fat, and we consume that intelligently and manage that effectively, I don't think we have an issue with 8 billion people.
Yeah.
I think we have more of an issue with the system we have in our addictions to consumption and to this retail therapy and all of these things they're more of an issue. And people are blaming food and blaming cows. Man, look at what you're consuming every day. And I'm an extremist, and I don't expect anyone to be like me.
Insofar as you don't consume anything?
Yeah,
anything superfluous?
In my approach. So let's look at the last 6 months of my life. I've eaten half a body of beef and 2 whole lambs. That's all I've eaten. Nothing else. I'm on to my next quarter body of beef after that, but I did a 6-month period. That's all I ate. I spent $13 a day. $13 per kilo. I had 800 grams of meat a day. I measured it out. The 200 grams that's out of that kilo a day that I was consuming was also for my 2 dogs. Pomeranians, they're only tiny. Yeah. Very environmentally friendly dogs. Yeah. My wife and my mother.
Is
and my
your
son.
Wife carnivore too?
No, not at all. And I don't expect anyone else to be. But she eats, more of a Western A price type diet. She eats very healthy, but she eats vegetables and meats and and I'll talk about the health part a bit later. But basically, that's all I've consumed. Now, if there was a real issue with that, then I'd be in trouble. That's why I'm doing all my blood work, just to kind of prove this. And I don't expect other people to do it. I think having seasonal fruits and vegetables, growing them on your balcony, great. Having them from a local, permaculture garden is what I really believe in. And
agree.
I take all the food scraps, not that I have any, but my wife's and sons all goes back.
You waste nothing.
It all goes back into compost in a local permaculture garden. And, there's just no need for all the consumption. I don't have any plastic wrapping. I get the bodies delivered to me in a plastic tub. I take it out of that, put it into stainless steel tubs.
Where do you get it from? Where do you get the meat from?
I get it from Ethical Farmers.
Okay.
Yeah, Dominic O'Neill.
Yeah.
I'm sure you met him. Yeah. And he just delivers that to me in a plastic tub, which I give back to him. And then I break those all down into 2 to 4 kilo kind of lumps that I put into stainless steel, put that into my chest freezer. Yeah. And I don't have to go to the supermarket. I don't have to go
6
shopping.
months at a time.
It's so easy. Oh, I get 2 months at a time. So I had that that's how big the freezer is I have, just to be clear. But I basically walk over to my freezer every 2 to 3 days and pull out one of my stainless steel containers. First day I have it raw. Now that's very controversial, but I have it raw the first day because it's been frozen, and then I prepare it correctly and salt it. Then I'll sear on the second day, and then whatever's too tough or whatever I slow cook. So basically at the end of that, all I've got left is 1 20 kilo bucket of the bare bones, because when I make bone broth myself, I put all the bones in first, slow cook them, no liquid, get all the connective tissue or the marrow or the fat, everything off that. Then the next 48 hours after that, I add water. I don't add salt in the second stage, so I get more of the minerals out of the bones. And then after that, all I've got left is calcium carbonate, just the bones, and they all go back to the farm that they came from. This time I'm actually taking to Charlie Arnott's farm, who you had on before.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And I'm going to take them there. But that's my waste, and
Zero waste.
Zero waste, no plastic. And this, I understand that I'm an extremist and not everyone's going to want to do that.
Extremely healthy, though, I dare say.
Oh man, I feel amazing.
What about your blood works? What are they showing before and where you're at now?
I did some in June, the end of June, but I've got them all coming. So I just drew all the blood on Saturday. So we'll see what happens there. But basically, all my bloods are normal. The only thing that's off the chart, which is a whole podcast in itself, is my cholesterol.
Yeah.
And I'm what's termed a lean mass hyperresponder. You can look up Dave Feldman's work on that. And it's basically that I've done, ketogenic and high fat for so long that my blood sugar is normally between 3.8 and 4.2.
And what's the average person?
Oh man, average? Do you want unhealthy? They're skyrocketing it, man, with what they're consuming, and it's so sad because it's doing them harm.
But give me a number.
So what's considered healthy?
What's considered healthy?
Yeah, 5 to 6.
5 to 6, and you're half of that.
Yeah, almost half. But that stays solid.
Mm.
But my fatty acid profile very high. That's what I'm running on is fat.
Yeah.
I'm
ketones.
Your ketones.
Yeah.
But depending on how much protein is in the meal, it might shift me out of it for a little bit. But but not even like people. This whole keto thing is great, but people are hunting for ketones. They're trying to get their ketones up. Now, my ketones will only rise. My beta hydroxybutyrate will only rise above like 0.6 or maximum 0.8 when I'm eating this way. The only way I can get it higher than that is prolonged fasting.
Yeah.
So if I
what do you call prolonged fasting?
Well, anything from 24 to 72 hours.
Yeah.
I only have 2 meals a day, lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
And you call it lunch or you can
so
call
how
it a
long
late
are you fasting
breakfast.
for? 14 to 16?
Yeah, usually between 16 to 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
I'll fast every day, and I've done that for 3 years. I had a brief period where I started having breakfast again, but I was just because when I went to Carnivore, that was one of the challenges was if you eat too late and you're eating a lot of fat, you don't get as good a sleep.
Mm.
So I have to make sure I stop eating around 4 hours before I go to sleep, and it's fine. If that's a side effect, there's one, but I feel awesome. It's quite profound.
What do you expect with, like, say, for instance, your inflammatory markers, things like homocysteine and stuff?
So all my inflammatory markers are normal.
Oh, normal or better than normal?
Well, yeah, better than normal. Like
normal
all in
for
a
uber healthy person.
But even those things are debatable to some extent. C-reactive protein, and there's all different things going on with different people. So it's very hard to generalize and say that they're a pure marker for that. But in terms of cholesterol, my last one 9.3, and most people are like, oh man, you've got to go on statins.
Isn't it? My GP said it to me.
Even for the last 20 years being on a Western A price style diet, I've never been below 6.5.
Yeah,
never.
What do you say, Aaron, to people like everyone, people that are partially to good educated on this stuff will go, well, you've got HDL and you've got LDL.
But even that, if cholesterol was bad, even reducing it right down so your level's like 3.5, if it's really that bad, even then you still got so much of it circulating. If it was really the problem, you want to get rid of it altogether, don't you? But it's trying to get people into this ideal range and the norms keep dropping. It's fraudulent. It's not real. And it's also based off a carbohydrate-based metabolism. So the norms that apply for people that are consuming lots of carbohydrate are very different from those that are consuming more fat. Yeah. So we need an overhaul in all the blood norms. My HDL is through the roof, as well as my LDL is above norm, and my triglycerides are non-existent. I'm like usually 0.4. I'm below the reference range. So we'll see what happens in this next one. But, it's just up to people to kind of step back and look at it. And we can't expect doctors to be on top of all the latest research. I mean, they're inundated with unhealthy people and they're trying to deal with it. And it's, they're just humans too. I think people put them on pedestals and think that they know everything or just give their lives to them in the sense that, they want their prescription or they want a diagnosis. But and I don't get me wrong, I appreciate and respect doctors, but it's more that they're dealing with a situation that's getting more complex as time goes on, and we can't expect that they have the time to stay up to date with every bit of research in all fields. And if you look at what people can do now, you can walk in, you can be in a waiting room with your conditions and go through Google and,
Which
find
is what people do.
Yeah. And then you can sit in there and just check whatever that doctor has to say as they're saying it. And the thing is that it's making them obsolete. So they've got to, either upskill or change the approach, work with people. If someone comes in and they have something that they may not agree with, let's talk about it. But no one anymore can take a stance that, I'm smarter than you.
Yeah.
Because we've all got access to data now. So,
but they will though. This is a true story. My mum and dad and brother are all medical doctors. My mum died of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. I begged her 7 years before she died to go and see someone, functional medicine doctor, because the science was starting to come out around it. Point blank, literally bet her life on that the only thing that can help me is tablets.
Yeah.
And she died taking a cocktail of tablets and whatever she took. It was tragic. And now my dad has
family's tough,
early onset dementia. And I say the same thing to him. We brought him down to the Brain Mind Institute at Sydney University, and he just walked out of there going, they've lost their marbles.
Yeah, totally, man.
Yeah.
It's scary,
sad, man.
And it's sad, but it's, it's programming. People just, it's like they want to outsource responsibility to a doctor. It's okay that they're going to take responsibility for my health. But to me, the definition of health is taking responsibility for yourself.
Of course.
That's all it is. Like if you're willing to take that path, that's what real health is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter at what stage of health and disease you are, but your desire to take responsibility is what's going to make you healthy.
Yeah.
And, taking that on board is a big challenge for a lot of people because especially, you get diagnosed with cancer or a condition, people go into a state of stress, and that stress, that mental emotional stress is so damaging. And there's a great sense of relief when someone comes to them and says, oh, I've got the answer, or I'm going to help you. So I understand it. I just don't agree with it. I think that we're better than that as a species. We're more intelligent than that, and we need to start taking more responsibility for ourselves, and then also acknowledging that there's an opportunity for change, and that we have to keep evolving our approach, and we can't just say, okay, I'm going to forego this responsibility and palm it off to somebody else.
Yeah, no, it's
and we've got to get all the different advice from different people, and all of that, and just keep learning. But
yeah, I think it's the thing though that the business of medicine is about pharmaceuticals and surgery. At the end of the day, like that's what
keeps it turning over.
That's what keeps it turning over. So it's very hard for people that have spent 15 years of their life to go, and Dr. Doron Sher, that I'm sure you're aware of, like he is a classic example, an orthopedic physician whose practice has suffered because he's adopted holistic approach. Yeah. I'm not going to operate on you until you lose weight and your inflammatory markers come down.
People just want the quick fix.
People, no, doc, you got to give me a new knee. He goes, you don't need a new knee. You need to lose weight and get some collagen into your diet, whatever.
Totally,
but at least it's starting to happen.
It is starting to happen, and I think people like Doron and have them getting more exposure. They're going to attract the right type of people that are willing to take that path and realize that, hey, they may still need surgery, but if they go into that surgery as healthy as possible and they've done all the work, they're going to come out of that and have so much more to walk away with.
Of course.
And it's the same with the whole cancer thing, the heart disease thing, let's get as healthy as possible before we do these interventions. And if it's an emergency, do it straight away. But if it's something that's chronic or it's something that is manageable, then let's do the least invasive thing first. Get as healthy as possible and get the most value out of modern medicine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't have value at all. Like I'm totally in agreement with what they can do. I think it's awesome, and I think we need to keep furthering that. But I just think the basic level of health is so poor, and just lifestyle management is just not done. Like if I was to meet you, I could say, how are you feeling today? What are your goals? How do you feel about yourself achieving those? What's your outlook? Do you feel fairly positive? Let's have a look at how you breathe. You're staying hydrated every day. Do you sit down and eat 2 good meals a day? What's your relationship like with your family? Do you move every day? Let's have a look at how you squat. And then, what time are you getting to bed? Now, that took me all of how long?
45 seconds. Yeah.
Who's asking that?
Yeah.
Everyone's in such a hurry.
Yeah.
And that's the work that needs to be done. And the reason why it's not being done, because to answer those questions and to go through it with someone is hard work.
No,
that's what that's basically my approach right there. And that's what I try and work with. But a lot of people just in a hurry.
Yep. How do you find it? Because you're dealing with everyone from professional athletes through to the elderly. Yeah. Is your underlying philosophy the same with everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where you're at.
Where does it start? Are they those simple questions?
Yeah, totally. And it starts wherever they're at.
Mm.
And what's the next step for them?
Yeah.
What can they do next to improve their experience and take a step towards health? And what are they willing to do?
Mm.
And I could tell them 1,000 things that are going to be beneficial for them, but the best program is the one that someone does.
Yeah.
It's so simple,
even if it partly does.
Just let's find out what you're willing to do.
Mm.
And the only way we can do that is to actually communicate effectively and listen. If we're just telling people what to do, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
It can't work because they haven't taken that responsibility. You're just ordering them to do something. Now, what's their motivation? Fear. They're scared something bad's going to happen if they don't do it.
Yeah.
Second, they're not scared. What are they going to do?
Mm.
And if someone has something contrary that's a little bit easier because they're just doing it because they think that you know something, but now somebody else sounds smarter, okay, we'll just jump on that.
Yeah.
They've got to own it for themselves. It's the only way. I've never helped anyone change in a sustainable way that hasn't taken ownership of what I've shared with them for themselves. All the people, like I've trained people in the past and, I'm guilty of overtraining people to lose body fat, which is, just stupid.
Yeah.
It's
because
abused.
It starts with nutrition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's lifestyle. Yeah, man, I've seen amazing changes with people just getting down to 2 meals a day and not snacking, even if they weren't eating the best food, but just doing that, just having, a 16-hour window where they're not eating for a change.
Yeah.
And just stopping the snacking, and then if they can get onto, better source produce and get into more fat and less carbohydrate, you just see the changes unfold and happen for people. Whereas, you can beat the fat off someone by overtraining them.
Yeah, of course.
And you can use your aggression and motivational method to, try and force them into over-exercising, but their body's saying no. And we've got got gyms all over the world and trainers all over the world training people in a way that is self-destructive.
It's interesting you say, because I was going to ask you about the madness of exercise, because I live in Bondi.
Yeah, man.
Every morning.
Health capital of the world.
The health capital of the world, but
unhealthy as well. Yeah.
It's
self-abusive.
Self-abusive, and you can lead all the nocturnal
yeah.
habits to one side. But I walk along, and everything from there's an old lady that's teaching a very overweight guy how to do yoga, the most diabolical instruction I've ever seen, through to the 15 different boot camps along the promenade and on the beach. Again, and looking at all the people that are doing it, down to the monkey bars down at the north end, and that whole addiction to vanity muscles as opposed to functional movement and changing underlying behaviors is just it's like an epidemic of craziness.
Yeah, it is. But even so, like, I have clients who want to look better, and I don't have a problem with that, but I want them to look better for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Not for just, the next 6 months or 2 years if they're lucky before they, burn out. But if you look at the loading that's getting put on people, and it's also that confusion. It's the same as the whole saturated fat thing, the cholesterol thing, the environmental issues that we have, and it's misinformation. And I love movement. Like, this is my living. I teach people movement all day, every day. That's what I do. But I'd never recommend it for body fat reduction as a primary.
No.
It's part of the picture,
a small part.
Yeah, comparatively.
Yeah.
It can accelerate it, but I would never want to use it in a way that's putting more stress on a body than they already have.
Yeah.
I want to relieve the stress. I want to balance their body, improve their posture, increase muscle mass in an intelligent way that supports their joints, supports optimal alignment so they feel like they're a tuned instrument rather than just beating them up and trying to beat that fat off their body and ending up with a hormonal system that's more broken after and joints that are degenerated because you cannot maintain that output if you haven't turned off the tap. It's just so simple, like just turn the tap off. You're trying to get it all down the sink. You've got a bucket trying to get it out of the sink, but just turn the bloody thing off. If you stop putting that stuff into you, and it's not that I believe in calories in, calories out, but it's a huge part of it. But just the nutritional source of what they're putting in their body and the overconsumption, the snacking and just riding blood sugar up and down all day, every day. It's just so stressful on their body.
What do you say, Aaron, to people? Because this is a line that I think a lot of people, it's almost become fashionable, the intermittent fasting, and people are seeing some great results. But those people that exercise, particularly the ones that exercise hard in the morning and they say, no, I get hungry and I need to replenish my glycogen stores. Like, this is what science has told me is the right thing to do. It helps with recovery. My brain needs glucose to think and all of those things. How do you answer that with?
They're aging their body.
Yeah. Because it's just more stress, more inflammation,
more stress. No,
more cortisone.
Your stress in your lifestyle financially, your relationships are stressful, your work's stressful. And you've got chemical stresses. Now you're just adding more physical stress to that system. And the foods that you're eating are stressful and you're over-consuming. You can never outrun that. You've got to deal with the etiology of why you've got excess body fat and why you have a metabolic issue. Obesity is
a metabolic disease.
And you can't solve it with exercise driving fat loss. You're not looking at why they've got the problem in the first place. Exercise didn't cause it.
Yeah.
But it's going to dig a bigger hole for you.
Interesting.
If you're in a hole, stop digging. And that's all exercise is when you're overweight. Because people that are overweight, man, that's a workout just to go for a walk.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. We have people that think they need to train. So they're paying trainers or they're going to group exercise to feel the motivation of the room or their instructor. And that's just allowing them to hurt themselves even more.
Yeah.
Their body's saying no for a good reason, but they're there and they're like psyched up. So, the group training environment it's great for people in the sense that, people come together and share an experience as community. I'm all for that. But when you're in a group, it's like going to war. And these people are going to war every day and they're going all out. It's like they're competing in the CrossFit Games. They're just pushing themselves so far.
Yeah.
And the worst part is when they get a result because they lose a bit of body fat. They put on a bit of muscle mass. They feel better because when they look in the mirror and when they look at the scale and they look at all those measurables, they're thinking, fine, I'm doing well, but the fatigue's starting to kick in.
Yeah.
So then they have to start, consuming more things to try and prop it up. So then they start over-consuming and then, we've got supplements being consumed like nothing else just to prop people up. They've got, more coffee and it's just crazy. You shouldn't need that.
Yeah.
You just need to look after your body and nurture it back to health. And it'll lose body fat because there's no need for it. You're not going into hibernation. You don't need to store it on your body and it's readily available. Stop freaking your body out and just eat whole fresh food and just stop eating all the processed stuff that's concentrated. It's sad.
It's sad, it's expensive, and it's fueling enormous industries. And I was going to ask you about your view on this whole longevity piece, on the back of the blue zones that came out and then cryotherapy and infrared and biohacking and supplements.
I'm all for trying to live as long as possible, but it's a quality of life. Calorie restriction, they're showing that it's working, but who wants to live that life, man? Who wants to live off, 800 calories a day just to try and get another 5 years of life? It's a quality of life, it's life to your years, as everyone says, not just years to your life. So I think it's great. Let's keep experimenting. Let's keep researching. Let's try and find a way to live longer, but let's make sure that we do everything now that we can to live a beautiful, healthy, regenerative life right now. Let's heal ourselves right now. And by doing that, we're most likely going to live longer anyway. But doing all these external things and selling supplements and selling all these kind of extreme things that aren't so affordable for everybody, and people feeling like they're missing out because they can't afford it.
Yeah,
I think the people like David Sinclair that are putting out his approach to this, but I think he has a huge opportunity and a responsibility to do what everyone can do right now. If he's going to be the role model, he's going to advocate, this is how we're going to live longer. It can't be just through pills and through NAD supplements and, metformin. It's got to be through lifestyle intervention. It's got to be through, intermittent fasting, eating whole fresh food, not too much exercise. And you've got to own that to the nth degree. So that way that's what you're sharing. And then on top of that, let's add these other things, these supplements and these interventions that are high end now and just available for the select few. And then, okay, maybe we can make them more available for the masses, but let's get everybody healthy with what we know and what's, working. And that's where we have this huge opportunity just, for people to step up, be honest and share what they're really doing. If they're doing a great job, just be transparent, share your blood work, share what you're eating every day and just show it to the world if it's working. And let's challenge the people that look like things are a little bit too easy, that are on performance enhancing drugs and not being honest about it. Let's get them to be, more real. And then, I don't have a problem with anyone using drugs or doing whatever. I just have a problem with people lying.
Yeah.
And the whole sport thing, like you've got such a diversity of different genetic abilities. So you might have someone who's just genetically gifted. Like I've worked with Antihuman. That guy is phenomenal. Yeah. He's a freak. He's a hard worker.
Yeah.
And he's genetically gifted as well on top of that. So you put all those things together, and that guy had, one of the worst spines that I've seen as an athlete, and he did all the work to rebuild it and played, some of the best sport on the planet. He
broke his back, yeah.
Oh, man, it was a mess. And he's a phenomenal person, just so driven, so motivated, and he was able to hold his spine together, and he's since had spinal surgery. He needed it when I first met him, when he came to me and worked with me. But a genetic freak, but hardworking. But then you've got other people that just don't have those genetics, that are competing and, whether it's the Olympics or competitive sport. Now, is that fair? Is it fair just to let everybody use an amount of drugs that brings them up to an even playing level?
Of course not.
Because then it's purely just work ethic that we're measuring. So it gets very difficult. But I think that we need to just get more honest about what's going on, what people are achieving. Look at people. Some people just have genetic superiority. Some people have amazing training history, and some people have done things for a long time and then just changes. And that's that whole thing we were talking about before with the Game Changers documentary. It's just we've got to start, kind of looking at things, breaking them apart and figuring out, what's relevant for everybody and what's really going on here.
Yeah. It's interesting. My understanding with the Game Changers was that there were a bunch of athletes that started as part of the documentary.
Yeah.
But their performance dropped so badly.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And that for some of them, they got sick, that obviously they were wiped. So instead of presenting that we're all different, and perhaps for some genetic freaks, you can be a world champion UFC fighter, but for most of us, unfortunately.
But to put a strongman in there when it's one of the, the sport that uses the most, one of the sports that uses the most drugs on the planet, and to, kind of advocate that as a message is just sad.
It was.
And, there's videos of him online just consuming massive amounts of supplements and what he consumes in a day. And that's not the picture of health at all that we want to advocate. But it is what it is, and we've got to look at it and just hope people stay open and think a bit more critically.
I think, unfortunately, that for so many of them that they will get sick and have to come back. Like 84% of all vegetarians and vegans end up coming back
Go into remission.
Go into remission. That's a nice way of putting it. People like Anthony Minicello, that clearly was world-class athlete and hammered his body for how many seasons did he play? 15 odd seasons at the top of his game.
Over 300 games, just phenomenal.
Freak. How is he now, and how has he gone about? Yeah, because he's adopted these practices. Like, obviously you see him on TV still.
Yeah.
What about his spine and things?
Oh man, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Obviously he had to have the surgery with the areas where he was bone on bone. You know, there's no amount of anything that's going to heal that unless you sit still for long enough for that area to fuse and you get a natural fusion.
Yeah.
So he had that repaired, but his health and is just a freak. But anyway, like just next level because he's doing everything as well as that, which is so cool.
Yeah.
And he's such a great role model for it because he's a calm, relaxed, honest, sincere, genuine person.
Amazing.
And that's what we need, more people like that sharing what they're doing. And if they've got a message, you know, being open and sharing it in a nice way, just not getting aggressive. Even if you are right, why be an asshole?
Yeah.
You know, why be mean to other people or why talk down to anyone? You know, we're all in this together, and some people are a bit more confused, and it is frustrating. Like you said, you had to, you know, hold back a bit when people are saying things, but we've all got to have patience, and that's what we need. You know, like it's easy to feel like I've had maybe 50 messages about game changers in the last 2 weeks. You know, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And then, you know, people using it as evidence to support their argument. So they're like, oh, but didn't you see that in Game Changers and whatever? It's like, man, just take your time. And you don't want to be mean to anyone, and I don't want to. It doesn't help them.
Yeah.
It's just going to make them defensive and just hold on stronger to their viewpoint.
Agree.
We need to dissolve that frustration and fear that they have. You know, fear it's so powerful and it's so inhibiting on the brain. You can't learn when you're scared.
Yeah.
And when you're angry, you can't learn. So we need to all calm down and just be loving and caring and supportive to one another, and let's look at the data honestly and break it down in a way that is digestible. That's the biggest problem with all the statistics and all the data that we have. You know, the average person can't decipher that.
No, of course not.
They haven't been educated to understand the code of it. Yeah. And it's almost like they make it so hard for the average person to be able to read through research and extrapolate anything. They just make it so complicated. And we need to shift that. We need to educate everybody so they can understand, you know, what the differences are and what the data is actually showing. Yeah. And even just understanding, you know, absolute versus relative risk is so massive. Yeah. But most people would, you know, hear that just like, man, what does that mean? Like,
explain more for those that don't understand.
Let's just look at two basic things. So let's say you've got 1 in a million people and then 2 in a million people. What's the difference between that 50% increase if it's 2 compared to 1? But it's still 2 in a million or 1 in a million. It's nothing. But that's how they get statistics. That's just a perfect example of manipulating stuff. It's like, oh, you know, there's a relative risk of, you know, you got a 50% improvement by doing this. But it's, you know, it's minuscule when you look at the big picture and look at the actual data. That's just how they want people to look at that perspective. It's you know,
it's tricky.
It is tricky.
Yeah.
You know, it's
correlation and causation, like things like that. But,
you know, and it's like all of the data that we look at in epidemiological studies or just any study is, you know, if you're not looking at all the variables, and it's very hard, how can you do a nutritional study? That's why I've done what I've done. I don't think everybody needs to eat just one animal, but I've done it for many reasons. One is that any intervention I do now, I'm going to feel it. And it's like that's all I'm eating, and that's one intervention. Yes, well, lifestyle stresses are different. So it's very hard to kind of, you know, be that controlled in a natural life unless you lock people up in two identical twins in the exact same environment, and then one has the vegan, one has the carnivore, and study them for 100 years. You know, that's not going to happen. But, you know, we just need to try and control what we can in terms of how we do things and just not exclude data and look at it honestly. You know, the healthy user bias is a massive thing when it comes to looking at plant-based diets, because most people believe that that's a healthier diet. Yeah. So if you've got someone who cares about the health, okay, they've gone plant-based, but what else are they doing? Yeah. You know, they're meditating, they're doing yoga, they're, you know, doing exercise, they're looking after themselves, and they're genuine. Most of those people are financially better off because they're more conscious of their health.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We've got to get people out of this state that they're in, they're mortgage slaves, they're rent slaves, and they can't think clearly because they're under financial stress. So they can't learn new things because they're just like churning, just in this program just to survive and just trying to, and they just get off on short-term fulfillment through, social media or just quick hits. It's just
shopping,
instant gratification.
And
that's the only thing that brings them joy, and they kind of look forward to that because the present for them is so painful to look at. And we've got to kind of just own now. You can't just think, okay, we're going to this place, the land of 1,000 virgins, or whatever it is that people are looking forward to.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, but that's how buildings get blown up, because people get convinced they're going somewhere better.
Yeah.
And to sacrifice now is all there ever is.
Yeah.
We've got to let go of past trauma. We've got to stop, fantasizing, about what could be. And fantasizing through looking at social media on the phone and going, cool, that I'm going to work towards that. Man, you're beautiful right now. You're amazing right now. Be in love with yourself right now. You've got all the resources around you right now. If you just let go of this desire to, have all these things that are unnecessary.
Yeah.
And just be in love with what is right now. You can be happy now. You don't have to wait.
Yeah.
And you don't have to get further into debt to try and find happiness.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone's just ignoring the obvious. It's right here. It's right now.
Yeah. And even further, I think, Aaron, that like you were saying before, $13 a day or whatever it is it's costing you to eat, that for the vast majority of people, adoption of these healthier practices is actually going to put money in their pocket.
Totally, man.
Drop one meal a day. Like
if you
there's
stop
30%
eating out
saving.
And just stop eating things out of boxes and just prepare your own food, you can save so much money. Yes, it's a bit more work, but
it might fuck our industry.
But the joy in just preparing your own food and knowing where it comes from and sitting down as a family and chewing every mouthful and connecting with your loved ones over a meal. We're losing that. And it's so important for good digestion and just a sense of security.
Yeah.
People don't feel secure. They're trying to make themselves feel secure through possessions and through purchasing things with debt, just to hold on to something that's material, just to feel safe. But we have safety right now if we just connect and love the people around us, and just listen to them. And I'm more guilty than anyone, just having all these ideas and want to share. But man, just listen.
Yeah.
Just listen.
I get it. I want to finish by asking you, for people that are genuinely confused, they've watched Game Changers, they've watched What the Health, they've listened to Dr. Paul Mason, they don't know whether they want to be a vegan or a carnivore. They don't know whether they should be going to
low carb, keto,
CrossFit or to a
Pilates, yoga, what do you do?
Tai Chi or whatever the fuck it is. Give us your 5 to 6 fundamental building blocks. I love the, just gratitude and love yourself and those things, but some real tangible things for people just to just digest for a little bit.
Yeah, or taking responsibility for your own health is huge. So allowing time in your life to be more educated, to take the time to read things, because it does take time.
Slowing down, people. Just listen.
Listening.
Yeah.
Turn off the distractions.
Yeah.
Just do less. Just stop.
What's your discipline around that? Do you turn it off when you get home?
Airplane mode as much as I can.
Yeah.
So as much as I can, and then I try and just get on there for work.
Yeah.
Just answer questions and connect with people and post stuff that I hope will educate and inform.
Yep.
Other things, just take a deep breath. Really simple every day. Just breathe in for 5, breathe out for 5, hold out for 5. So if you just do that with me now, guys, and just breathe in for 5 through your nose, out for 5, and hold that breath out for 5. And then take another breath in and do that 4-8 times, like 1 to 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Just slow down. There's no rush. And just if you do that before you eat, before you make a big decision.
Yeah.
Whenever you get in an argument, whenever you feel conflicted.
Good advice.
Man, just think before you act.
Yeah. What about meditation?
I like practical meditation like that.
Yeah.
Breathing meditation. I love movement and just doing one thing at a time, preparing food, spending time with my son and just disconnecting from everything else and just doing one thing.
Yeah.
That mindfulness.
I like
just being conscious. I think that, I love all the different practices that are out there.
Yeah.
Breathing, staying hydrated, so simple. I just have a 2-liter bottle of water that I take. It's in the carpet. Take it with me everywhere.
Yeah, we got water for you, buddy. It's all good.
And I just make sure I finish that every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have a bit more. I add a bit of salt to that. Got a good filter at home, so I'm not straining the
Salt
environment.
because it helps you absorb it.
Electrolytes.
Electrolytes. Yeah. Okay.
Most people are electrolyte deficient.
Yeah.
Really simple. Whole fresh food. Don't worry about it. Whether if you think more plants, okay, do more plants, but don't exclude animal products altogether. Just find what's good. I don't. And then the carnivore thing, if you want to try it, cool. But just with food, it's very complicated. But I try and get people a really basic kind of perspective that kind of helps them see the situation for what it is. Just look at all the inputs that go into whatever you're eating and look at what created that. A human being is an expression of a healthy ecosystem. Is what you're eating coming from a healthy ecosystem? That's all we are. We're the evolutionary outgrowth of the sun hitting the earth, bacteria, microbes, grasses growing, animals consuming plants, and us. We evolved to eat meat. We were herbivores, but we evolved because we ate meat. People can argue that all they want, but the evidence is there. And we're tool bearing. This is why we have amazing dexterity with our hands. We don't need big teeth or, claws or, these, we use tools.
Yeah.
We use our brain. We form communities to do amazing things and we can keep doing that. But to understand nutrition is to think, okay, well, the more you can connect with your food supply in a way that's in a form that's a healthy environment. So if that farmer's doing the right thing, you're going to be healthy. That animal's going to be healthy. That ecosystem's going to be healthy, and it's a solution. I personally believe that the health and environment issue is one and the same. We are an expression of our environment, and we're totally dependent on it.
Yeah,
and we can't separate ourselves from it, but we can connect with it in a better way, and we can vote with our dollar. So if you want to make a difference to your own health and to the environment, vote for good food with your dollar. Vote for good farmers with your dollar, and take the time to sit down with your family. Even if you're eating KFC, man, if you sit down and relax with your family and connect, that's powerful.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, don't eat too frequently. Just eat 2 to 3 good meals a day. Stop snacking. Now, the problem is if you're used to having a high carbohydrate diet, that's very hard because your blood sugar's going up and down. So it works well if you're consuming more good quality fats.
Yeah. And there's a transition from eating lots of meals. Yeah.
Totally.
Psychologically addicted to eating, that your
and
blood's
if you're
got
vegan, don't jump in and like you hear this or you just get inspired. It's like, man, I'm going to go eat meat. It's not going to work straight away. You've got to give your digestive system time. The longer you haven't been eating it, the harder it's going to be for the hydrochloric acid production to break down that protein, the harder it's going to be for your bile production to break down those fats and assimilate it. So it's going to feel like a brick in your stomach.
Yeah.
So, you might have to supplement to make that transition back to it and start with bone broth or whatever if you're keen to heal yourself that way. But, it's everyone's individual choice what they do with their life.
Of course. But the meat one's an interesting one too, because we say it to people all the time, like, find the best quality that you can, because then you can eat less.
Yeah.
Like, you can get more nutrition from 150 grams of beautifully raised, pasture-fed animal than you can from a 600-gram T-bone from Woolworths.
Or just do what I did, $13 a day.
$13 a day. Go buy cows at a time.
But, and the thing is that it's going to change, but the cheapest things are like all the slow cuts and the organ meats.
Yeah.
No, and they get thrown. And they're our biggest crime, and this is what, thrown away food, up to 2/3 of what people are buying is getting thrown away. What we grow is getting thrown away. But then, the fat thing, just that really troubles me. If you look at lambs, they're just amazing at accumulating body fat and they've been bred that way. And there's a whole story about that. But the amount of lamb fat that gets discarded every day, gets trimmed at the butcher, gets thrown away in people's houses and just doesn't support human life. And we're talking about not being able to feed the planet. Man, that is nutrient-dense rocket fuel, and it's going to waste. But, it's just living simply is another huge point. And when it comes to exercise, do kind of just walk and move every day, keep good posture.
Yeah.
For strength training, 2 times a week is more than enough. And just,
How does your body cope with doing it as a career? You're just sensible about it?
I've changed a lot. I've overtrained. I've pushed my body way too hard in the past.
Yeah.
Just trying to, express my ego and
all
trying
do.
to be dominant over everybody else in whatever way. It's just craziness. But, you can look back and see it. But when you're in it, you're just kind of in it. I train maybe 3 times a week, 30 minutes. I'm teaching moving all day. And
but you're instructing. You're not doing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Just demonstrating. I feel good all the time. I've got some major injuries that I'm dealing with.
Really? From martial arts and skateboarding?
From overtraining and like a spinal
overused
condition that, that's plagued me. But one thing, it's turned me into an amazing coach, and it forced me to learn. Like I lost all sensation below my neck at one point. Couldn't feel anything, and that was so scary.
I can only imagine. It's a paraplegic,
Yeah, man. Scary stuff. I mean, luckily I could move everything. I just couldn't feel anything.
Wow.
And I went into shock. And then from that neck condition, that's 20 years ago, I rebuilt everything and stabilized it all. And that just made me very confident in what I was doing. That's why I was able to help Anthony, just because I believed in what I was doing so much, and to do all the stuff to stabilize. So I feel pretty good most days. And then I'm feeling better and better doing this whole carnivore thing. It's like it's peeling away the layers of disease that are in my body and just healing it deeper and deeper, which is pretty cool. And that's why I want to get the data to see what my feelings are.
Where are you going to share that data? On your website?
On Instagram,
which is Origin of Energy, and your website, originofenergy.com.
Yeah. So it'll all be there. Like I just want to get it out there.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But if everyone, one more thing, just get to bed on time. Get a good sleeping rhythm. Keep it simple.
8 hours?
Yeah, well, everyone's different. 7 to 9 hours.
7 to 9
Some people
the window.
do well on 6, they're out there.
Not many.
No, not many.
Yeah.
Some people need more, but it's a regular rhythm. Just sleep with the sun, guys. Easy.
Yeah.
Think before you buy. Breathe with the belly. Use a water filter. Eat whole fresh food. Keep the body moving. Sleep with the sun.
Yeah.
6 points. Get it done.
Great advice, man. Free of charge and everything. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Cheers, man.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.